Hi, I'm Timothy Morgan, and I'm really excited to show you what we have for some really powerful project management tools that are simple in their design, but pull together all the key elements that any project manager is going to need to be able to be successful for any IT project that they're managing, especially within the health IT spaces. This is going to use some tools within Smartsheet that'll make sure that we have all the right components to be able to build together everything that we need for a contacts list, a project schedule, the intake form for the actual initial request, as well as a RAID log to be able to track everything along the way. So let's go ahead and jump into the system and I'll show you a little bit about how it works. So once I'm logged into Smartsheet, I'm taken to initial home screen. I'm going to jump into what we have for the browse view. I'm going to jump into the source sheets. And everything starts with initial intake request. So this is a fully built out sheet that anybody accustomed to working with any sort of spreadsheet program is going to be very comfortable using what we have built out here. In addition, you don't have to release everything that you've got here to all the people that you might be working with. It's already come pre-configured with a form for us to be able to make available for our end users to be able to submit any of the project requests that they have on their mind. Now, once we have everything entered from the folks that are going to be giving us the details, we can work with it from there. But no two groups are identical. So understanding that you might have your own needs for what information you're trying to capture, we built this in such a way that it's very flexible to be able to modify, add additional fields, tweak what you have for any of the drop downs. Those are things that you can do on the fly as an administrator and make sure it's working for what your group needs to capture. You want to make sure that the project manager and the rest of the stakeholders and project team members have a good, concise summary of what exactly was discussed that actually got us to a point where we're ready to say that this project should move forward. In order to do so, having a built-out form is going to be useful for us. We've got a project intake form that's pre-populated with all the information that's been gathered thus far within the governance process. And we've actually built in automations behind the scenes to make sure that everything that we've taken in can be populated in a way that's meaningful and also be able to automate some of the process of being able to send that out to whoever are the contacts that need to be updated about the fact that their project's now approved. I've got a newly created document that does exactly what we just described. It gives a high-level summary of what exactly was the request. It has information about what was gathered, and this again is highly configurable so that you're going to learn the skills necessary for being able to build this out in a way that works for you and for your organization. So we've got everything in place for what we need to have coming in for the project intake request. Next thing is we need, as a project manager, to actually set up our team and get our resources organized. For that, I'm going to navigate to what we have for our contact list. It's going to give us all the different roles and individuals that might be responsible for some aspect of the project work. Maybe we have an analyst or a testing lead. Now, because we're trying to automate as much as possible, entering this information here is going to be useful for driving other details that we have in other places within our project workspace. Let's go ahead and check that out as we explore what it looks like for what we have for our project schedule. So this project schedule has been built in a way that's intuitive to use and also has some nice bells and whistles that make the work effort of actually creating and maintaining this document a breeze. Keeping tasks on what exactly has dates and what might be missing dates, sometimes pretty tricky whenever we've got things nested and collapsed into these parent rows. So we've got an indicator here that makes sure that we keep things in track for what we've got for all the dates that need to be identified. We've also pre-configured this with some predecessor relationships, so let's go ahead and populate some dates right now for the demonstration purposes. So I'm going to put a date 4 weeks into the past. And we can see that the rest of the dates that we need for anything that's been pre-populated here automatically cascades for what we have for any of those predecessor relationships. We've got the Gantt chart out on the right-hand side that lays out what exactly we have for some of the different time frames and the cascading project tasks one after the next. In addition, we flagged some of these items as milestones, critical path as well. And we can go ahead and also see that the health of each one of these tasks has been calculated for us. Now, this is because this comes pre-populated with what we've got for a pretty complex nested if statement to be able to make sure that whenever we capture details about what % complete we have for any given task, it's going to automatically let us know whether or not we're behind schedule, we're ahead of schedule, or we're right on track with where we need to be. And because these rows roll up one row to a parent row to a grouping row, and then all the way up to the phase and ultimately the project level, we've got health dictated for us for where we are based on whatever entries we have. Let's see some of this in action right now. So let's say, for example, that because this started a while ago, we've actually been behind on our documentation. Let's get caught up and identify any of those tasks that we already have 100% complete. And let's say that we're currently 25% complete. Because 25% is less far along than we should be for this task, we can see that we're yellow in our status. If we were to up this percent and say, actually, we're further along than that, we're 75% complete. We've now updated that and we are at where we should be, or above it, for this given stage of the project for this given task that we have in window. That's given us a green dot, and it's also updated our overall status for what we have for project health to be green, indicating that we are on track. And to that end, whenever we're working from the project schedule, we can have automations that are going to help us keep tabs on where we are with any tasks that are owned by other individuals. Being able to build in workflow automations for automatically requesting information of team members is hugely helpful whenever we're trying to stay on top of whatever we have in front of us. So building out these workflow automations is relatively simple, but it's a huge time saver whenever we as the PMs are not constantly following up with individuals to try and ask them where they are with their updates. And so on their side of things, they'll get an update notification request that comes to them through their email inbox. Additionally, if they're working within Smartsheet, they have access to these notifications through the notifications bell on the left-hand margin. And it truly is as simple being able to see what their last update reflected, showing that they have additional work left to be done. They can mark it off as complete or give the appropriate update for wherever they happen to be in that task and the window of time that they're working with. Once they've submitted those updates, that dynamically updates what we have within the project schedule underlying it without any additional steps required on the PM to make sure that that's in the system where it needs to be reflected the next time that we're working from the project schedule. And finally, because we're capturing this information coming back to us from the task owners in real time, and we're updating those to be able to identify which of those tasks are healthy versus those ones that might be at risk, we can catalog those and identify them for another notification that's sent out to the project manager, so that on a weekly basis, the project manager is getting a heads up for any of those items that might have dipped into the at-risk or on-watch statuses of yellow or red. So knowing where we are with any different project tasks and the associated dates with them, critically important. We also want to know who's actually working on these. So let's go over and start populating some details for what we got for the role. So for the early task efforts, not surprisingly, the project manager is typically in the driver's seat for those efforts. I'm going to go ahead and add these for additional rows here as well. So you can see as I'm adding in the roles that are associated with each one of these rows for the tasks that are at hand, we can see this is automatically populating name as well. And if we come down here and we have different team members that we need to assign based on the role associated with the task that we're looking at, we can see that's being populated as well. And not surprisingly, this is all being driven by what we have within our contacts list that we were just working on. So if we were to add an additional activity here, coming down to the training activities, we can see that we've added the role, but there's no assignee that's associated with it, which is apparent whenever we're looking at the assign to column. Let's fix that real quick. So we can see that by updating what we have for our contacts list, it's going to dynamically, automatically update all the other places within the project workspace where that information is going to be relevant. Again, one less thing that we have to worry about as a project manager is automating some of these tasks that become repetitive and time wasters whenever we're thinking about all the different ways where we could just enter the information once. So as we're making our way through the project schedule, we're picking up tasks along the way, but of course, inevitably, in any case, it's not rare for us to come across something that might be an issue that crops up. So being able to identify and catalog what we have for risks, issues, assumptions, and decisions, that's going to be important for us to accomplish as well. And there's no better way to do that than with a RAID log. So we've included within the project workspace a RAID log for being able to capture any of those things that pop up that aren't part of the plan. Being able to capture something related to a risk or an issue, as well as anything else along the way that might be associated with an assumption or a decision that's been made, this is going to keep everything in one central location for us to be able to manage, monitor, and then mark as resolved as we're working our way through anything that's not explicitly called out as a task within our project schedule. And as we have any new items that are being added, we have additional columns out here to the right that are automatically capturing some of the data that's going to be useful for us whenever we're keeping tabs on just how long has something been open, who's it been assigned to, where are we with any next steps that need to be accomplished, and where are we looking at any sort of tasks or issues, concerns that might be stale, that need our extra attention as the project manager to make sure we keep moving things along at a regular clip. So there's no better way to do that from a project manager's perspective than to have everything centralized in one location. So whether we're talking about details for the original intake ask or information for what we got for a project schedule, any of the details for what we're keeping tabs on from a RAID log perspective, as well as what we have for the general links for anything that we might need to have our fingertips on as we're working within the project space, a dashboard is going to be really useful for making sure that we never have anything lost along the way. So being able to use a project level dashboard for keeping tabs on all these pieces is hugely important. And because everything that we do within Smartsheet is easily shared out to any of the other constituents that we have within the project, it's always something that we can pull up during the course of a conversation or make sure that we're having follow-up discussions offline where we provide information to whoever we need to make sure that things are getting accomplished along the way. So again, another way that we can use the tools at our fingertips to be able to keep track on what's where it needs to be versus anything that needs our attention. This is built with a mindset of let's keep things simple, let's keep things lightweight, let's make things approachable, because project management is not terribly difficult as long as you have the right tools to work with. I hope this has been useful. Thanks very much.